So, you have an amazing voice, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. If you haven't heard Brenna sing, you need to hear her sing. She's amazing. Maybe, you know, so. All right, sorry, little ADHD moment there. We are continuing our discussion of prayer. And as you know from the scripture reading, we're talking, well, maybe you didn't, well, you know, you all know we're talking about the Lord's Prayer. That's what we've been doing for a while. And our focus today, I know what I was looking for, is for my remote control. Our focus today is really on, we're getting into the very last request of the Lord's Prayer. And do not lead us into temptation. Now, I've got some bad news for you today. Sad news, perhaps deeply distressing news for some of you. But the sermon today is going to be much shorter than usual. No, it's okay. It's all right. Very soon I'll get back to preaching sermons that are too long, but today it's going to be a little short because I really feel like this phrase, the final request, do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one, that there's too much there to really make one sermon, and so we're going to deal with it in two shorter sermons. And but we're focusing on temptation today, although sometimes tradition is temptation. But we are focusing on temptation, and specifically this part of the prayer where Jesus teaches us to pray, do not lead us into temptation. Okay? So the question is, what does that mean? And do we have, is the guest here with us? The guest is here with us, that is going to help us understand temptation a little bit better. There we go. We're really looking at this. Do not lead us into temptation. We're asking God not to lead us into temptations that are too strong for us. It's not a good thing to never be tempted. All of the spiritual writers, the great spiritual writers and leaders of the Christian faith say, if you ever find yourself in an extended period where you're not experiencing temptation, this is a bad thing. It either means one of two things. One, you're just living in sin and there is no temptation. It's like, yeah, I do it. No temptation involved. This is just my life. The other is that God has viewed us as so incredibly weak that He does not allow us to be exposed to any temptation. So it's not a good thing. All the spiritual writers, or at least the vast majority, agree on that. And agree also that temptation itself is a good thing. It gives us an opportunity to live by faith. It gives us an opportunity to choose faith, to choose to follow God. And so the question then is, how strong will that temptation be? How severe will the testing be? And in the New Testament, the word that we translate as temptation and the word translated as test is the same word. So we're asking God not to lead us into temptations that are too strong for us. Now, with a little help to sort this out, I'm going to could you bring our guest up? And could the kids come up and sit in the front row? All right. So thank you. Yeah, you got to stay with me. Mama will be in the room. It's all right. Yeah, you want to go with Mama. I get it. So have a seat. I'm gonna get Lucy up here so everybody can see her a little better. You can come up and pet her if you want. You want to pet her a little bit? Yeah. So okay. So got to be careful. She's a little nervous around people. So, but you can pet her and she'll be all right.
Like my old dog, Heidi.
Okay.
She was a Rottweiler.
Yep. Lucy, we're not sure. Lucy was a rescue dog, but you can pet her, and the more you pet her, she'll warm up real quick. But all right, now take a seat. We're going to talk about Lucy for just a second here. So Lucy is our dog, and Lucy is a rescue dog. We got her from an animal shelter in Huntington, West Virginia, and she loves Amy very much. Amy is her favorite person in the world, and she loves to be around Amy. But Lucy, we think she has some hound dog in her. We think she might be part black and tan coonhound, and because she has some pretty significant temptations too. If she sees a rabbit, she goes. If she sees a groundhog, she goes. If she sees another dog, because she really likes playing with other dogs, she goes. And so when we have her out like this in public, we keep her on a leash. Because even though she loves Amy And she kind of she likes me too, but she loves Amy a lot more. Even though she loves us, and she knows what stay means, and she knows what come means, and she knows what sit means, and she knows what down means. And when we tell her to do those things, she knows what to do and how to do them. But when one of those temptations is around, a squirrel, a rabbit, a dog, a groundhog, she forgets all of that. And she can't listen. She just runs. Sometimes she's run across a street to chase a squirrel. Sometimes there's been traffic on the streets. Sometimes she'll run into the neighbors' yards where we don't know. Sometimes she'll run into the neighbors' yards where they have dogs that don't really want her there. Yeah. Yeah. And so we know that there are some temptations, like when we're at home, when the cats are around, we don't keep Lucy on the leash. She's all right with the cats. We know that she can handle that. Sometimes she'll try to chase one of the cats, maybe a little bit, but not much. We don't have to worry. We can put food out on the countertop, and she's all right. She doesn't jump up and try to get it. She doesn't jump on company when they come into the house. And so when she's at home in the house, we don't have her on the leash. But when she's out, where she might see a temptation that's too much for her, we keep her on the leash because we don't want her to get hurt. We don't want her to get hit by a car. We don't want her to get into a fight with another dog. Yeah, you heard me say dog. We don't want her to run away and not be able to find her way home. That's probably how she got lost to begin with. She was just picked up as a stray, and we think maybe she chased a squirrel or a rabbit and couldn't find her way home, and so she ended up in the pound and then ended up with us. And we don't want to lose her, so we make sure that she doesn't get a chance to chase after something tempting that might hurt her and that she can't say no to, right? She can't say no to a rabbit. I can tell you right now, if a rabbit ran through here, she would try to get the rabbit. She would try to get the squirrel. Yes?
Rylan and Jekyll, he flippin' walked me instead.
He walked.
He flippin' ran like crazy, and I couldn't hold him.
Yep. My son had a great big dog once that dragged him across the yard because we told him, don't let go of the leash. And he didn't let go of the leash. Came back in the house covered with mud. He said, I didn't let go of the leash. I said, all right. So, but the temptation, that's the important thing. So when we're asking God, lead us not into temptation, we're asking God to treat us like Amy treats Lucy and like I treat Lucy, to know that there's going to be temptations out there. We can't leave her locked up in the house all the time. Amy likes to take her on walks, likes to take her to the park, likes to walk with her down the road, but she knows that there are temptations she can't handle, so she puts the leash on her so she can't follow that temptation. Does that make sense? And there are some things that we can't handle. Yes?
Could I tell her to sit?
You can try.
Hey, sit.
Try this. Lucy, sit.
Holy.
There you go. See, she also knows different voices right now. And some voices she listens to and some she doesn't. But God treats us like this. We try to be good dog owners and good pet owners. And God's an even better father than we are pet owners. Yeah, I know. If I'm going to be up here, I might as well scratch your ears, right? And so God doesn't want us to be tempted more than we can handle. Now, I'm going to let Lucy go back with Mommy for a minute, and then we might bring her up here again in a little bit. Actually, just a minute. I'll bring her back in a second. So I also have a cat. Did you see the shirt I was wearing last week? You weren't here. I had a shirt on last week. I should have put a picture up there of my cat, Plornish. Plornish is scared of everything. Plornish is scared of everything, even me. Plornish will crawl up and sit in my lap, but if I walk into the room too quickly, Plornish runs away because Plornish is afraid of he is the definition of scaredy cat. In the dictionary, next to the word scaredy cat, there's a picture of Plornish. And so I can bring Lucy here and have her on a leash, and she's all right. We know she's not going to bite you. She's not going to jump on you. She's not going to hurt you. And she's not going to be so scared that she tries to run away. If I brought my cat here, as soon as I let my cat out, my cat would run and hide, and I would probably never see my cat again because he's too scared. We don't want it. So we leave our cats. We got 2 cats. But Plornish in particular, I never take Plornish anywhere because Plornish is just too scared and it wouldn't be fair. It's too much of it. No matter how much we say, Plornish, we love you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to protect you. As soon as he gets a chance, he's going to run away and we're not going to see him. I also, at one point, had another dog. His name was Bandit. He died. He got really old and he died. And he was a little dog. And I would never bring him in for a children's message. Do you know why? Why? Because he bites kids. He doesn't like kids. He doesn't like kids. I could take Bandit out for a walk. He loved going for walks. He didn't like other animals. Some animals he liked to play with. Most of them he just wanted to leave them alone, especially when he got old and grumpy. But he was not good around kids, and so we didn't take him around kids. And like, if you all wanted to pet Lucy, and I said, come pet Lucy. When I took Bandit for a walk, when kids came up to pet Bandit, I said, don't pet Bandit, he'll bite you. Because we knew he couldn't, and it would be bad, because if he bit someone, they might get hurt, and Bandit might have to get put to sleep. And we didn't want that to happen. So we didn't let Bandit get in situations where he would do something that would hurt him really bad, like bite someone and have to get put to sleep. Does that make sense? That would kill him. That would kill him. And so God's like that. He keeps us in a spot and he keeps us in places where we'll be tempted, but we won't be tempted so much that we can't handle it. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Now, all right, I'm going to ask Amy to come take Lucy back. She's really comfortable up here now, but I bet she'll go right away. Yeah, there we go. Right to Mom. Mom is Lucy's favorite person. Now, I have a question for you. I have a bag of candy right here. And I'm going to fall down. This bag of candy is unopened. This bag of candy is open. Is one of these a harder temptation than the other? If I have 2 bags of candy and I were to just, put them on the pew beside you, right there where you're sitting, and then just get up and preach the rest of the sermon, would one of them be harder to resist than the other? No, would they both be pretty easy to resist? If there was candy here, what if there was candy here, but there was none? Like all of the adults were off doing something else, but there was a big bag of open candy here. Why don't we go see? I think you just answered my question.
See if any of us demolish a bag.
So sometimes it's true for us people too. Like I like ice cream. I like ice cream a lot. And when I have ice cream in the house, I eat too much of it. So I put it all the way down in the basement and I have to walk down and around and dig it out from under stuff before I can get it. Because if I put it upstairs in the upstairs fridge, I just nom. And then I eat all of my ice cream in like 2 days. And then my doctor gets mad at me and everything else. So people are the same way. Some things are more tempting than others. Which would be more tempting to you? If I had a big bowl of Skittles up here, or a big bowl of Brussels sprouts up here.
Chocolate bar.
Okay, a big plate full of chocolate bars, or a big plate full of stewed peas. Which would you be most tempted to eat?
Chocolate bars.
The peas? Whoa, we got 2 chocolate. How about you? Chocolate bars or peas? We got 3 chocolate. Peas, dude. You like peas, huh?
Neither.
Awesome. I don't like peas. Neither? Okay. You want the candy, see? And sometimes it has to do with age, because all of you are older and you're sitting back there and it's okay and you're not tempted to come up here and try to take the candy. But sometimes when you're littler, it's harder. And he didn't go after the bag that was closed. He went after the bag that was open. But he also didn't take any. He looked in, but he didn't take any. So even, you're growing, dude. Wild like your curls. I like those curls. Absolutely. So, yeah, you got a nice shirt. Now, I think we're done. I'm going to let you each take 2 things out of the bag of candy. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do this. It'll go quicker. I'm just going to give 2 things to you randomly. You can trade. You want to get some out of that? Okay, I'll get you some out of
I'd
that.
rather have that.
Too late. I already gave you that. So you can trade. You can trade. Once you touch it, it's already done. But you can trade. So, all right. I'm going to give them to you random. I'm just going to reach in and grab 2 things. There you go. Otherwise, we spend too long. We spend too long choosing. There you go. And there you go. All right, I tell you what. Here we go. I'll take those. And I'll give you 2 out of here, random. You're welcome. Oops, that's 3. That wouldn't be fair. There you go, 2. All right, thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Sometimes we have to put the candy up high to reduce temptation as well. The Israelites, I hope you enjoyed the dog. I hope you enjoyed the candy and hearing about my cat. But fun stories to tell. But this is deep biblical truth. It's deep biblical truth. The Israelites, the Philistines, and the Red Sea. I can't remember. I did put the slide up here. So this is here in Exodus 13. And you read it earlier. I'm going to read it again. When the Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was the shorter way. For God said if they faced war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. So here's the setting. God has just done one of the most amazing miracles God has ever done. And He has delivered the Israelite people, His people, from bondage and slavery in Egypt. Egypt was the most powerful nation on earth at the time. The Pharaoh was the most powerful person on earth at the time. And God humbled him, brought him to his knees. When God first sent Moses to say to the Pharaoh, let my people go so that they may worship me. And we got to remember, because usually when we quote that, we just say the first part that God sent Moses to Pharaoh and saying, let my people go. But God said, told Moses to tell Pharaoh, let my people go so that they may worship me. And Pharaoh said no. And he waffled. He kept going back and forth. He would say yes, then he'd say no. And he got really proud. His heart got really hardened. And he was like, I'm in charge here. Nobody else. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. Not Moses, not this invisible God of his. I'm Pharaoh. I'm in charge. And God humbled him. God broke Pharaoh. And Pharaoh finally let the Israelites go. And they were leaving Egypt. As they were leaving Egypt to go to the promised land, the shortest route to go, the most common way to make the journey was to go through the country of the Philistines. But if they went that way, they would face war right off the bat. And God said they're not ready for it. If they face war right off the bat, they will turn back, leave me, and go back to Egypt. Go back to their slavery. Go back to their bondage. It's not an unusual thing. People often go back to the thing that had them enslaved, the thing to which they were in bondage. Because even if it's no fun being a slave, sometimes it's orderly and predictable and no surprises. You know what's going to happen. Go into a war, you don't know what's going to happen. It's chaos. So God said, I'm going to take them a different route. They can't handle that level of temptation yet. They can't handle a test that's that severe yet. So God took them instead, by way of the desert, to the Red Sea. There was still a test. There was still temptation. They got to the Red Sea. There was the sea. It was right in the middle of the way. And they couldn't swim across the sea, and then Pharaoh's army started coming up behind them, and they said, whoa, we should have stayed in Egypt. God was right. First sign of trouble, they just wanted to go back. But they couldn't go back because they would have had to face the army that was coming there to kill them. And God made a way through the sea. And God destroyed the army, and they escaped. Hear this. And from Egypt up to that point, on their way, God was already present with them, manifesting Himself in a visible way, a pillar of cloud by day, a pillar of fire by night. So They had seen what God had done to Pharaoh, the most powerful king on the earth. God was present with them in a way that they could physically see, and they were still not able to trust God enough to go into battle, to follow Him into battle. And so God took them through the wilderness instead. And the Bible says He tested them there. He tested them there. They were tested when there was no water, and then He brought water from the rock. They were tested when there was no food, and then God gave them manna in the wilderness. They were tested when Moses spent 40 days up on the top of Mount Sinai receiving the law. And they made a golden calf and worshiped it instead. They were tested over and over and over again. It took 40 years of testing before the Israelites were finally at a point where they could trust God enough to follow God into battle against those same Philistine nations. 40 years it took to get there. But they weren't ready. When we're praying, God, do not lead us into temptation, the implication behind that is that God is not only leading, but we're also following. God is leading and we're following. And the notion here is Jesus is not teaching us, Jesus didn't teach us, God, pray this. Jesus didn't say, God, pray this way. God, do not let me be tempted. God, shield me from temptation. God, protect me from temptation. God, don't ever test me. Don't ever tempt me. It was, God, do not lead us into temptation. The implication is God is leading and we're following, and that we can trust God not to lead us into any kind of test, trial, or temptation that is above our level of faith. We'll be sufficient for it by the grace of God. When we're following Jesus, when we're following Jesus' lead, God will give us enough faith to face whatever tests and temptations that we face. Now, there's two ways to use a statement like this. One of them is I think, entirely inappropriate and arguably even abusive. When we encounter someone who's going through really, really tough situations, really significant, painful, horrible things that are happening, a desert time, a testing, a temptation, to say to them, look, God will never cause you to face anything you can't handle. God will never give you more than you can handle. If you're going, God will never give you more than you're sufficient for. Never say that to someone going through a situation like that. People don't receive that as a blessing. They don't receive it as encouragement. 99% of people receive that as judgment, and they feel shamed and humiliated because they're in that and they're going, I can't handle this. I can't do this. And now I got this church person telling me there must be something wrong with my faith too. Don't say that to people. But on the other side of it, when we're the ones in it, when we're the ones facing it, when we remember, look, we've been following God, and God said, we've been praying, God, don't lead us into temptation. Don't lead us into a place that's too much for us. If God has brought us here, that means we do have enough, by the grace of God, to face and go through whatever we have to face and go through. If we're following God, and God leads us into something, first of all, we can't do it on our own ever. But if God has led us there, we're not doing it on our own. God is there with us. God will go through it with us. And God is saying implicitly, if I'm leading you here, I will give you enough to get through it. Not by yourself, but with me. This is the hope we have. This is what we're praying for. When we fall to temptation, and we will, because even when we're following God, and even when God leads us into something and God says, just stick with me, just stick with me. You don't need, you got enough. I'll give you enough to get through this. We're still going to fall. We will. I do, pretty regularly. I do. Unless you are Jesus of Nazareth, the second person of the Trinity, you too will fall to temptation. You too will sin. When that happens, we remember that God is patient and full of steadfast love and kindness and mercy and will redeem us out of that. He did that with the Israelites over and over and over again in the wilderness and even after they got to the promised land. Jesus did that with his disciples over and over again, both before his death and resurrection and after his death and resurrection, when the disciples were still, at times, messing up and falling into temptation. God will have mercy on us. So I told you it was going to be short today. I'm sorry about that. I'll make it longer next time. Temptation is a part of life. We will never escape temptation completely. It's never good. I mean, if you find yourself in a spot where it's like, wow, it's been like ages and I'm not experiencing any temptation, don't pat yourself on the back and think that somehow you have arrived. Something is wrong if you're in that spot, and you need to go to God and say, God, what's going on here? Because either there's sin in your life that you are ignoring, or something else going on. The devil doesn't bother to tempt people that are already doing what he wants them to do. So, if you're not getting tempted, there you go. We'll talk about the devil next week. Temptation is a reality. Question is, are we going to follow Jesus? And then know that wherever we go and whatever we face, Jesus is facing it with us and will give us enough to get through it. Not without pain, not without suffering, not without scars, but enough to get through it. Or are we going to try to do it on our own and fall and fail and just turn back to whatever was holding us in bondage to begin with? Jesus said, when you pray this way. Do not lead us into temptation. Do not lead us into temptation. In Jesus' name, amen.